Be me, Greta, 32. Living the life I was always told I should want. Got the great job in marketing, senior level, people listen when I talk in meetings. Got the nice apartment in a trendy part of the city, the kind with exposed brick that costs way too much. Financially independent, I don't need a man to pay my bills, and I make sure everyone knows it. My social media is a curated masterpiece of success, brunch with the girls, and strong political statements. Everything is perfect except for one glaring, infuriating detail. I am completely, utterly single, and it's starting to really get to me. It's not for a lack of trying. My evenings have become a ritual of swiping through a digital meat market of mediocrity. My thumb gets a better workout than most of the guys on these apps. Let's see who we have tonight. Profile 1, guy holding up a giant fish. An immediate no. What am I supposed to be impressed by? Your ability to outsmart something with a pea-sized brain? It just screams, I have no personality. Swipe left. Profile 2, a series of gym selfies, each one more ridiculously posed than the last. His bio says, just looking for a partner in crime. I can already tell his only crime would be stealing all the mirrors. Narcissism is not a good look. Swipe left. Profile 3, 6'2", because apparently that matters. Oh, the passive aggression. Yes, it does matter. Don't shame women for having preferences when you have a whole list of your own, I'm sure. The fragility is palpable. Swipe left. Profile 4. Seems okay, decent job, nice smile. Bio says he's an easygoing guy who avoids drama. Red flag. That's code for, I want a woman who never has an opinion and won't challenge me on my problematic behavior. He wants a decorative plant, not a partner. Swipe left. This goes on for an hour. I pour myself a second glass of wine, feeling that familiar mix of frustration and despair. It's not me. It can't be me. I'm successful, I'm intelligent, I'm politically aware, I'm in good shape. I'm a catch. The problem is the dating pool. It's not a pool, it's a shallow, murky puddle. The market is saturated with emotionally stunted man-children, guys who peaked in high school, and men who are just terrified of a strong, successful woman. They say they want an equal, but the moment they meet one, they run for the hills. They're intimidated. That has to be it. The next weekend, I'm out for brunch with my friends. It's our usual routine. We complain about work, talk about the latest shows, and then, inevitably, we get to my dating life. It's my turn to vent. I'm telling you guys, it's a wasteland, I say, pushing my avocado toast around my plate. I went on a date last week. A date. A minor miracle. What was wrong with him? One of my friends asks, already knowing there was something wrong. Where do I start? He was a perfectly nice guy on the surface, an architect, good conversation. So, what was the problem? The check came, and he just looked at it, and then he looked at me, and he said, should we just split this? My friends groan in solidarity. No, he didn't, says the other one. He did. I was horrified. It's not about the money. I could have bought the whole restaurant. It's the principle. It shows a complete lack of chivalry, of a provider instinct. It's a test, and he failed. Miserably. You're right, that's a huge red flag, one of them agrees. Exactly. So I paid for my half, said a polite goodbye, and blocked his number before I even got to my car. I continue. And he's not even the worst. The guy before that, we were having drinks, and he started telling me how stressed he was at work, like really getting into it, complaining about his boss, his long hours. He was just dumping all of his negative energy on me. Ugh, emotional baggage on the first date, my friend nods. Right? I'm looking for a partner, a rock, not a project. I don't have the time or energy to be someone's therapist. It's like men have forgotten how to be strong. They've become so weak, so emotionally needy. It's a total turnoff. We talk for a bit longer, and I list off a few more examples of recent failures. The guy who was shorter than his profile said, the guy who used the wrong fork at dinner, the guy who didn't seem to have a strong opinion on climate change. The list is long and varied. Finally, after I've exhausted my complaints, there's a moment of silence. One of my friends, the more diplomatic one, sips her mimosa and looks at me thoughtfully. Greta, she starts, choosing her words carefully. You've been saying this for a while now, that the problem is all the men. Because it is, I state defensively. I know, but have you ever thought about maybe talking to someone, professionally, Not because there's anything wrong with you, but just to get a different perspective. Maybe a strategist to help you navigate this whole mess. I stare at her. A therapist? Is she serious? You think the problem is me? I ask, my voice cold. No, not at all. I just mean, you're a strategist at work. You analyze problems and find solutions. Why not apply that to your personal life? Maybe a professional could spot a pattern you're not seeing. My other friend chimes in. She has a point. It couldn't hurt, right? Just to talk it out with a neutral third party. I'm initially insulted, deeply. They're supposed to be on my side. They're supposed to just agree with me. But then an idea starts to form in my mind. A therapist, a neutral party. What if I went to a male therapist? A man, someone from the other side. He would have to be objective. He's a doctor. I could lay out my case, all the evidence I've collected over years of terrible dates, all the examples of toxic masculinity and emotional immaturity. And he, as a man and a professional, would have to concede my point. He would have to validate my experience. It would be the ultimate proof. I could finally get an expert opinion confirming that I'm right, that the problem isn't me. The idea grows more and more appealing. You know what? I say, my mood shifting. That's actually a brilliant idea. My friends look relieved. I'm going to do it, I announce. I'm going to find the best therapist in the city and get to the bottom of this once and for all. That night, I spend hours online. I'm not looking for just anyone. My criteria are specific. I want a man, preferably older, over 45, someone with authority, experience, not some young guy who's going to try and be my friend. I want someone with a traditional, no-nonsense approach. Psychology, not auras and chakras. I find him after about 2 hours of searching. Dr. Nathan White. His professional headshot shows a man in his mid-50s with graying temples and a serious, intelligent expression. His bio is perfect. Over 25 years of clinical experience. Specializes in cognitive behavioral therapy. His website is professional, clean, and straightforward. He's perfect. He looks like someone who deals in facts, not feelings. I book a session for the following week. I spend the next few days preparing. I actually make notes on my phone, a list of my non-negotiables and a partner, a list of recent dates and the exact reasons for their failure. I'm treating this like a client presentation. I'm going to walk in there, state my case, present my evidence, and win. The day of the appointment arrives. I dress carefully, a smart, professional outfit, powerful but feminine. I want to project success and confidence. His office is in a nice old building downtown. Inside, it's exactly what I expected. Quiet, tasteful, masculine, dark wood, leather chairs, shelves full of thick books. No clutter. Dr. White comes out to greet me himself. He's exactly like his picture, tall, composed. He has a calm, deep voice. He leads me into his office, and I sit in the leather chair opposite his desk. There's no couch, which I'm grateful for. This isn't about lying down and talking about my childhood. This is about solving a problem. He sits down, picks up a pen and a notepad, and gives me a calm, neutral look. So, Greta, he says, his voice even, tell me what brings you here today. This is it, showtime. I take a deep breath and launch into my prepared opening. Dr. White, I'm here because I seem to have a problem that I can't solve on my own, which is unusual for me, I begin. I'm a very successful person. I'm a senior brand strategist at a major firm. I'm financially secure. I have a great social life. I'm healthy. By all objective measures, my life is in order. He just nods, listening, not interrupting. He makes a small note. The issue, I continue, lies in my romantic life, or rather, the complete lack of one. I've been single for the better part of 3 years, and it's not from a lack of effort. I'm on all the apps, I go out, I'm open to meeting people, but I consistently find that the quality of men available is shockingly low. I pause for effect. His expression doesn't change. I have standards, of course, I say. I think any self-respecting woman should. I've worked very hard to build the life I have, and I'm not willing to compromise on a partner. I believe a relationship should enhance your life, not detract from it. That sounds reasonable, he says, his first words since we started. Can you describe these standards for me? Perfect. He's walking right into my structure. Of course. I have a list, you could say. First, physical attraction is important. I'm active, I take care of myself, and I expect the same from a partner. For me, That means someone who is tall, at least 6 feet, preferably taller. I like to wear heels, and he needs to be in good shape. Not a bodybuilder, but someone who clearly respects his body. I look at him. He's just writing. Financially, I go on, he needs to be my equal at the very least. Ideally, he should be more successful than I am. Not because I need his money, I have my own, but because it speaks to his ambition, his drive. I can't be with someone I don't respect professionally, and frankly, I don't want to feel like I'm carrying the relationship financially. It creates an uncomfortable dynamic. Intellectually, he has to be able to keep up. I want deep conversations. I want someone who reads, who is culturally aware, who understands the nuances of the world we live in. He must be progressive. I could never be with someone who holds outdated patriarchal views. A partner has to be a feminist, full stop. Dr. White jots down another note. Progressive, I see him write. And emotionally, I say, getting to the most important part. This is where most men fail. He needs to be emotionally intelligent, open, a great communicator, not afraid to be vulnerable. But, and this is key, he can't be weak. He still needs to be a man, decisive, confident, a leader, someone who can take charge when needed. I want a partner, not another person I have to manage. I lean back in my chair, feeling like I've laid out my case pretty effectively. So, to summarize, I say, I'm looking for a tall, successful, intelligent, progressive, emotionally available, but strong and decisive man. It doesn't seem like an impossible list to me. It seems basic. All right, Dr. White says, looking down at his notes. You've described the ideal. Now, can you tell me about some of your recent experiences with men who did not meet these standards? You mentioned a few examples to your friends. He's good. He wants data. I can provide data. Absolutely. Let's start with the architect I mentioned. We'll call him Bill Splitter. The date was fine. The conversation was fine. But asking to split the bill on a first date is a deal breaker. It signals that he's not a generous person. It signals that he doesn't understand traditional courtship cues, which are still important. It tells me he's not looking to provide or protect in any meaningful way. It's a failure of character. Then there was the lawyer, the emotional dumper. He was successful, he was tall, but he spent half the date complaining about a case he was losing. He talked about his anxiety, his lack of sleep. I sat there trying to be supportive, but all I could think was, this is not attractive. I'm dealing with my own stress all day. I need a man who is a calm, steady presence, a refuge. He was a storm. I don't need more storms in my life. What about the one who wasn't as tall as his profile claimed? Dr. White asks, his eyes not leaving his notepad. That's a simple one. Dishonesty, I reply instantly. If you lie about your height, something so fundamental, what else are you lying about? It starts the entire interaction off with a breach of trust. It also shows deep insecurity. I need a man who is confident in who he is. And the one who made the joke, he quoted a TV show that is notoriously problematic. I calmly explained to him why that kind of humor is harmful and reinforces negative stereotypes. I was trying to educate him, to have a teachable moment. He got defensive. He said it was just a joke and that I was being too sensitive. That's classic male fragility. He couldn't handle being challenged by an intelligent woman. He shut down. Again, a failure of character and intellect. I tick off a few more on my fingers. There was the guy who called me bossy when I suggested which restaurant we go to. The guy who didn't text back for 3 hours and then acted like it was no big deal. The guy who still had pictures of his ex on his social media from 2 years ago. Each one, I conclude, is a small data point that adds up to a larger picture. And the picture is this. Modern men are a collection of red flags. They are either not successful enough, not tall enough, not emotionally mature enough, not strong enough, or not progressive enough. They are riddled with insecurities and toxic behaviors inherited from the patriarchy. I finally finish. I've said everything I planned to say. My case is airtight. The evidence is overwhelming. I look at Dr. White, expecting a nod of agreement, a sigh of sympathy. I expect him to say, Greta, you're right. It sounds incredibly difficult. But he doesn't. He just sits there, silent for a long moment. He puts his pen down on the notepad. He looks up from his notes and makes direct eye contact with me for the first time in what feels like half an hour. His expression is still completely neutral, unreadable. I feel a tiny, unfamiliar flicker of nervousness. So, I say, trying to fill the silence, you see my predicament? It seems pretty clear, doesn't it? The problem isn't my standards are perfectly reasonable. The problem is the men. I lean back, crossing my arms, my posture clear. I rest my case. Dr. White looks at me, and his silence seems to stretch for an eternity. He's not looking at me with sympathy. It's something else. Analysis. He's looking at me like I'm the one who's the problem to be solved. And then he finally speaks. He leans forward slightly, folding his hands on the desk. His voice, when he speaks, is not accusatory. It's calm, measured, like a professor explaining a complex equation. "Thank you for laying that out so clearly, Greta," he begins. "You've presented a very detailed picture of what you're looking for, and a very clear summary of your experiences. You are correct in one regard. There is a problem. However, the data you've presented does not point to the conclusion you've arrived at." I feel my back stiffen. What is he talking about? "I'm not sure I understand," I say, my voice a little tighter than I intended. "Let's look at your requirements," he says, glancing down at his notes. "We can set aside the physical attributes like height for a moment. Let's focus on the character traits, because that's where the core conflict lies." He picks up his pen and points to a spot on his notepad. "You require a man who is a traditional provider. Your term. You use the failure to pay for a dinner as a primary example. This expectation is rooted in a very traditional, almost chivalric model of relationships where the man is the financial aggressor and provider." I nod. "Yes, it shows generosity and respect. And yet," he continues, his eyes meeting mine, "you also require that this same man be a progressive feminist who rejects what you call outdated patriarchal views. Do you see the fundamental contradiction there?" I blink. "Contradiction?" "There's no contradiction," I say, trying to keep my tone reasonable. "A man can be generous and also believe in equality." "Generosity and a belief in equality are not mutually exclusive," he agrees. "But you framed it as a test of his adherence to a traditional gender role, the role of provider. That role is a cornerstone of the very patriarchal system you say you despise. You are simultaneously demanding that a man perform a traditional male duty, while also demanding that he reject the belief system that created that duty in the first place." My mind starts to race, trying to formulate a response. It's not about the system," I stammer. "It's about the gesture. According to your own testimony, it was not a gesture. It was a deal breaker," he counters, his voice still perfectly even. "You are filtering for men who adhere to a traditional script, and then you are penalizing them for any other traditional traits they might possess. You want the parts of the old script that benefit you, and you want to discard the parts that don't. A man cannot be both a traditional provider and a modern, fully egalitarian partner in the way you've defined it. The two philosophies are diametrically opposed. You are searching for a unicorn." I feel a flush of anger. "Unicorn?" He's being dismissive. "Okay, let's move on to the next point," he says, not waiting for my rebuttal. He points to another note. "Emotional availability. You want a man who is vulnerable and a great communicator. You want him to be emotionally open." "Yes," I say, a bit sharply. "Something that is tragically rare." "Is it?" he asks, tilting his head slightly. "You gave me the example of the lawyer who shared his work-related stress and anxiety with you. That is a textbook example of emotional vulnerability. He felt comfortable enough with you to be open about his struggles." "He was complaining," I correct him. "It was negative and unattractive." "So when you say you want a man to be emotionally open, you don't actually mean you want him to share his negative emotions, his fears, his anxieties, his weaknesses?" I'm caught off guard. "Well, no, I mean, not in a complaining way. He should be strong about it." "How does one be strong about their anxiety?" Dr. White asks, a genuine question in his voice. "How does one be vulnerable without showing any weakness?" Again, you've created a contradiction, a paradox. You've asked for two opposite things. He continues before I can find the words. "You say you want a leader, a man who is decisive. But you gave an example of a man you labeled bossy simply for making a decision about a restaurant. It seems what you want is not a leader, but a man who will expertly guess what you want to do and then present it as his own idea. You want the illusion of leadership without any of the actual authority that comes with it." "That's not true," I insist, my voice rising. "I just didn't like his choice." "And you are entitled to not like his choice," he says calmly. But you categorized his act of making a decision, the very thing you claim to want, as a character flaw. So, the man who is decisive is bossy. The man who is vulnerable is a whiner. The man who offers egalitarianism at the dinner table is cheap. The man who makes a joke you disapprove of has male fragility. He puts his pen down again and leans back. Greta, the men are not the ones failing your tests. The tests themselves are designed to be failed. You've constructed a labyrinth of contradictory expectations, and then you express shock and disappointment when no one can find their way to the center. My heart is pounding in my chest. This is not how this was supposed to go. He was supposed to be on my side. He's twisting my words. He's making me sound unreasonable. This is completely unfair, I say, my voice trembling slightly with anger. You're taking everything I said out of context. You're defending them. I'm not defending anyone, he replies, his composure unshakable. I am reflecting your own words back to you. I am a psychologist. I look for patterns. The pattern here is not a series of flawed men. The pattern is a single, consistent filtering system that is perfectly designed to produce the outcome you are experiencing. Loneliness, loneliness. The word hangs in the air, a cold, heavy weight. He's not done. Let's talk about that filtering system, he says, his tone shifting from analytical to something more direct. You described your dating process as reviewing candidates. You look for any single disqualifying factor, a wrong word, a wrong gesture, a failure to meet a physical or financial metric, and then you eliminate them. Block his number, move on. This is not a search for connection. This is a search for perfection. And perfection, Greta, does not exist in human beings. I grip the arms of the chair. My knuckles are white. I have high standards, I say through gritted teeth. There is a difference between having high standards and demanding flawlessness, he says. You expect a man to come to you as a finished product, perfectly tailored to your exact specifications. But a relationship is not about finding a perfect person. It's about building a connection with an imperfect person. It's about compromise and forgiveness and overlooking the small things because the big things, character, kindness, mutual respect, are there. But they don't have good character, I almost shout. Lying about your height is a character flaw. Being cheap is a character flaw. Is it, he asks, or is it an insecurity, or a different financial philosophy? You don't know because you don't stick around long enough to find out. You see a single data point that deviates from your ideal and you discard the entire person. You have granted yourself zero tolerance for human imperfection, while presumably you have flaws of your own. The accusation is so direct, so pointed, it feels like a physical blow. Me? Flaws? The silence in the room is deafening. I can hear the ticking of the clock on his wall. He just waits. He lets his statement sit there. Finally, he leans forward again, and his voice is softer now, but no less impactful. Grega, this brings me to my final and most important question, the one you tried to answer earlier, but didn't. I know what's coming. You have presented me with an exhaustive list of what a man must provide for you, he says, looking at his notes. He must provide financial security and generosity. He must provide the correct height and physique. He must provide emotional strength and leadership, but also perfectly tailored vulnerability. He must provide intellectual stimulation and complete ideological alignment. He looks up from the page, and his eyes are piercing. You are asking for a man who is, by your definition, in the top percentile of looks, income, and emotional intelligence. A man of extremely high value. So, my question is this. For a man like that, who can have his choice of partners, what do you bring to the table? The question hits me again, harder this time. I start, my mind a complete blank. I'm successful. I'm independent. I'm intelligent. He is already more successful than you, by your own requirement, Dr. White points out calmly. Your independence is a wonderful personal attribute, but it is not something you give to a partner. So, what is your offer to him? I offer partnership, support, a life with me. Based on your own descriptions, he says, what you've offered so far is not support, but a constant series of tests and judgments. You offer criticism of his sense of humor. You offer disapproval of his emotional state. You offer judgment of his financial habits. You require him to adapt, to change, to fit into a mold you've created, while there's been no mention of how you would adapt for him. It feels like the air is being sucked out of the room. Every word he says is dismantling the reality I have so carefully constructed for myself. The carefully built castle of my victimhood, where I am the prize and all the men are unworthy suitors, is crumbling around me, and I can't stand it. The nervousness I felt earlier has now blossomed into pure, white-hot rage. This isn't therapy. This is an attack. "Who do you think you are?" I say, my voice low and shaking. His expression doesn't change. "I am a therapist who you are paying to give you an honest clinical assessment of your situation," he replies. "My situation? You're blaming me. You're blaming the victim. This is unbelievable. Of course you'd take their side. You're a man. You're just defending your own." This has nothing to do with gender, Greta. It has to do with mathematics. You have created an equation that cannot be solved. The variables are in conflict. The logic is flawed. The result will always be zero. Always. The condescension in his voice, the calm, infuriating logic, it's too much. I'm on my feet now, my purse clutched in my hand like a weapon. "This is classic mansplaining," I sneer. "You sit here in your big leather chair, telling me that my standards are the problem. You're telling me I should settle. Is that it? I should just accept some mediocre man who doesn't meet my needs just so I'm not alone?" "I have never used the word settle," he says, still seated, still calm. "I am suggesting you reevaluate whether your needs are actually a list of contradictory and unrealistic demands. I am suggesting that you start looking for a human being instead of a fantasy." "My fantasy? You want to talk about fantasy? The male fantasy is a woman who has no opinions, no standards, and just smiles and agrees with everything. That's what you want me to be." "Did I say any of that?" he asks quietly. "Or are you now putting words in my mouth because you cannot argue with the logic of what I've actually said?" That's it. That's the final straw. He's not just a therapist anymore. He's the embodiment of every man who has ever dismissed me, ignored me, or made me feel small. He is the patriarchy in a tweed jacket. "I am done," I announce, my voice loud in the quiet office. "This is the most unprofessional, misogynistic experience of my life. You're not a doctor. You're part of the problem." I turn on my heel, my face burning. I don't even look back at him. I stride to the door, my hand shaking as I grab the handle. "I came here for help," I say, my voice choked with fury. "And you attacked me. You should be ashamed of yourself." I yank the door open and storm out into the waiting room, not even bothering to close it behind me. The receptionist looks up, startled. I don't stop. I march straight past her desk, through the outer door, and out into the hallway. I stab the button for the elevator, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The ride down feels like it takes an hour. All I can hear is his voice, his calm, cutting words echoing in my head. Contradiction, paradox. Designed to be failed. What do you bring to the table? When the elevator doors open, I burst out into the lobby and then onto the street. The cool afternoon air hits my face, but it does nothing to quell the fire inside me. I walk, almost run, down the street, not knowing where I'm going. My mind is a whirlwind of justifications and rage. How dare he? How dare he turn it all around on me? He just doesn't get it. He can't possibly understand what it's like. He's a man. He lives his life on easy mode. He has no idea how hard it is to be a woman navigating the world men have created. He's the problem, his whole mindset, that cold, unfeeling logic that completely ignores the lived experience of women. I get back to my apartment and slam the door shut. I throw my purse on the floor, my perfect plan, my perfect airtight case. He was supposed to agree. He was supposed to validate me. Instead, he put me on trial, and he found me guilty. I replay the entire conversation in my head, but this time, I'm armed with my anger. His logic wasn't logic. It was a weapon used to silence me. His questions weren't questions. They were accusations. He didn't see a successful woman with high standards. He saw a difficult, demanding shrew who needed to be put in her place. The anger feels good. It's warm and protective. It's so much better than the cold, creeping sliver of doubt that tried to wedge its way into my mind in his office. I pick up my phone. I pull up his professional profile. I'm going to write a review that will warn every other woman in this city about this dinosaur, this misogynist masquerading as a therapist. But as my fingers hover over the screen, I stop. His last words echo again. The result will always be zero. Always. I throw the phone on the couch. I don't want to think about it anymore. He's wrong. He has to be wrong. I'm right. I know I am. I walk to the kitchen and pull a bottle of wine from the rack. It's going to be another night of swiping. This time, my resolve is even stronger. I'm not the problem. They are.